Welcome to the Nobody Asked to Me Guys show. Guys, and tonight assisting me with hosting this show is Uncle Selwyn Jones. Now, you guys have been here before. You know that Uncle Selwyn Jones is a very beautiful, happy person, and he's always live and full of joy and energy. So we don't want anyone to get upset and wonder what the heck's going on, because this is just brother Uncle Selwyn Jones. But listen, we have special guests here with us tonight. We have in the house with us, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Edward Ted Sutton. He goes by a nickname Crazy Ted. Of course, he didn't name himself that. Some of his friends named him that. And of course, you know how normally we will get a bio and we'll read things about the individual that's going to be sharing with us tonight. But guess what? Dr. Ted Sutton is a bio. And as he shared with you the information that he's going to be sharing, he will give you his own bio in his own words. And guys, listen, fasten your seatbelts. And I'm telling you, sit back and relax, because you are in for a ride. Dr. Sutton, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. And you?
Listen, brother, I cannot complain. We are happy that we're so happy that you're here. And I again, Uncle Selwyn, if you want to greet our guests before we get started, please do so, sir.
Ted. This is my man. This is one of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever met. I mean, you talking Pinky and the Brain stuff, trying to change the world, this would be Pinky. This guy has ran into buildings, saved people, prolonged people's lives, stop kids from being boys and turn them into men. This is what we would call a king in our race.
Thank you, David.
Let's hear you, baby.
Dr. Sutton, the floor is yours. We will not interrupt if there are inadvertent questions because of your exciting life. You know, we may pause and ask a question, and we like to give our guests liberty to ask questions as well. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Well, I thank you. And first, just let me say it's an honor to even be here on tonight, and in different ways. It's an honor to be a guest, you know, here. But to be honest with you, it's an honor to just be alive for me. You know, it's such a blessing. And when I say that, you know, just real quick, you know, running down some of the history, my grandfather was a freedom fighter, and he was actually one of the what they call ministers for defense out of Louisiana. And he stood against the Klan when the Klan didn't want, let's say, white and black having service together. And he actually stood in the gap, you know, in that situation. My father was an organizer for Dr. King. He went to Sutton and Grambling University. And then my mother, she actually worked for Medgar Evers. The same summer he was actually assassinated, and she went to Jackson State University. And so, with that being said, you know, they moved from the South to Philadelphia, and then they moved to Baltimore, and I was born. And I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and I ended up actually hooking up with one of the roughest groups on the East Coast. And it was just something that was just unnecessary, but God ended up turning that whole situation around, brother.
Oh, the testimony that you've shared with me, and I know that you're going to set our audience on fire, because not many times, Brother Sutton, to be very frank, most individuals, regardless of race, creed, or color, never actually get to talk to and sit with, parlay, if you will, with individuals that have actually been there and been involved and can tell them firsthand. So we, again, are just excited about you being here tonight, and we can't wait for you to share with us. We know that this is an emotional time to share because of all the things that have transpired in your life. And you and I, along with every man that's watching our broadcast, along with every man that's on this set, understand that real men understand how to have
That's right.
emotion. And we don't have problems worrying about what somebody is going to think. So, hey, brother, if the tears flow, all that is cleansing your soul. So please continue.
I've got to go here.
Yeah,
I've got to go here. I'm sorry, Ted. It's your statement. Then tell us about that heroic act you had. That's all I got to say. I'm muting.
Oh, okay, then. Yeah, I get in that. Actually, you know what? It really was something. So even having good parents, and my father ended up being a pastor of 2 churches. You know, and here in Baltimore, my mother became a principal of a school. But even with that, I ended up being their middle child that ended up hooking up with one of the roughest groups on the East Coast. And so, not knowing who and whose I was, I ended up, you know, kind of like getting caught up with some of these people that they wrote a series called The Wire that was on HBO. You know, it was written about the people that I was with. And so, and my godfather, man, that kind of took me under his wing was a man named Little Melvin Williams, the man from American Gangster. So with all of that being said, that even though I came from I would say a very good family, and a family that was very freedom fighting conscious, and also in the church, I ended up letting my actually pull me in to a situation, you know, that most of my friends wasn't able to come out of. And so with that situation, you know, it was really, you know, really something. And so actually, so what ended up happening was I ended up hooking up with one of the roughest groups on the East Coast. And that whole situation just turned things around. What I realized early is that I felt adults couldn't protect me. So when I say adults couldn't protect me, I felt that adults could not do anything for me. My good parents, and they were very good parents, when they went to work, they couldn't protect me on the way to school. They couldn't protect me on the way home from school, and they couldn't protect me in school. And so when I saw people being stuffed in lockers, it didn't look too comfortable. And so as far as with that, you know, instead of being predator or prey, I didn't want to be that person that was being victimized. So I ended up hooking up with that group. And when that happened, everything just changed, you know. And at the time, I thought everything was going well. Nobody messed with the bad boys. And, you know, and also it seemed like good girls like bad boys at the time. And so it was a lot that was really going on. So, but what ended up happening was I didn't know how my life was destined to take, you know, a turn, you know, at that time. And so, you know, so it was really, really, really something, you know, as far as with that story and things. So what ended up happening once I got with this group, it's so sad when you feel you know everything. And you know, and I had good parents, and I felt that, you know, it was once I was making money, and I felt that I was kind of like didn't need a lot of other people. And so what ended up hooking up with them, but I ended up having 1 year that so many things happened, I almost lost my mind. And so as things were going well, I owned my first car at 15, my first house at 19. And I'm thinking that the you know how on Scarface they show the world is mine. And but with this particular situation, things actually took a turn. And so in 1 year, so many things happened. I almost lost my mind. And one is that, you know, my father, he was that type that in my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And if you're going to be in my house, you're going to have to do things my way. And I ended up saying, well, maybe I shouldn't be in your house. And that is so unfortunate when those things happen, when that child doesn't think he knows more than what he knows. And he may have to learn something the hard way. And what ended up happening is that I ended up leaving home. But then my godfather had already received 35 years at the time. 2 guys in my crew both received life plus 20 at the age of 19. And then I had one of my guys, they found him in Drew Hill Park, stabbed up in his own car, and that on Valentine's Day. And that showed that was actually a friend that did it. That was somebody that knew you, because you would not be sitting in the park in the middle of the night with somebody you didn't know. And also one of my other friends, he got gunned down. He was paralyzed from the neck down, could not move anything below his neck. Then my girlfriend had ended up getting diagnosed with cancer, and she ended up passing away. And then a guy who was like my lieutenant, I'm his son's a godfather, he got caught with a carload of guns, and to get himself out, he sent the ATF to my house, and my house was raided. And then my best friend got gunned down, and we had to hold his brains in while the paramedics came. And all of these things happened in a short period of time. And I tell people that that year was one of the roughest years, of my life, but it was kind of like the tale of two cities. It was the worst of times, it was the best of times. And so what ended up happening when I went to court, I was looking at time, and my lawyer said there's no way that I was going home. And so that didn't look good for me. I ended up actually being in a situation. I saw one person that I knew come in. Well, actually, it was two people. One was my friend that was testifying against me. He was coming. And the other person was a person that was in my crew. And I spoke to him. I gave him the head nod. And I realized he didn't want to say anything to me. He actually just went straight to the back of the room, and he actually did not want to let anybody know he knew Crazy Ted. And so for me, that was an unfortunate situation. And looking from him that would not speak to me. Now, these are the only two friends I have in the courtroom, and I use friends loosely, and the other person was the person testifying against me. So the two people I know in the court, one won't speak to me, the other one is testifying against me. And I realized that looking from him and looking at my friend that was on the that was testifying against me, I realized, and I tell the young people that I talk to now, that one of the worst things that you can do is for you to one of the worst things that you can do is to and I say, if you don't remember my name, just remember this message. The worst thing that can happen to you is for you to fall in love with something that doesn't love you back. And I realized then that I had been in love with something that had absolutely no love for me. And I was ready to take life, and I was ready to give my life in that situation. And it was good that the reason it was such a good thing that all of these bad things was happening to me, because fire has a way of burning off what you don't need. And in that situation, I ended up actually, they put me from the morning docket to the afternoon docket. And I ended up actually going in, and I said, giving my life to Christ in the Mitchell Courthouse building, second floor, fourth bathroom stall, 10 minutes before I was to get sentenced to 15 years for something I didn't do when I had got away with some of the things that I did. And actually, I asked God to give me a second chance, this person that I didn't feel deserved it. And in fact, actually, I tell people when I was asking for God, I told him, and I said I was down on my knees, and I was actually down in toilet water, because that was the only reason why that weapon, it was broken. And I see now that it was like God wanted me to acknowledge him in the same sewage I had been running in the same thing that I worship. In fact, actually, when I asked, I said, yo, check this out, God. And I tell people, when you're in that situation, don't worry about protocol, just know who to call. And I actually went down, and I said, I know you don't know me like that. Now I'm talking to God. I'm talking to somebody I feel knows every raindrop in the ocean, and somebody that knows every ant's name. I said, I know you don't know me like that. And I said, but if you would just give me a second chance. And I stopped, and I said, no, you've done too much. You have blown up cars. You have kicked in doors. You have used duct tape for more than what it was supposed to be used for. I said, if you give me half of whatever I'm supposed to get, I promise that I will share my testimony to anyone who will listen. And I meant that. And it was so wild, because I got up and I went back into the courtroom. I'll never forget that. They had read off my arrest record. Now, I had been arrested before in the past for racketeering, loan sharking, handgun, assault with a handgun, and strong arming. And my lawyer said, there's no way you're going home today. The judge said, I wanted to hear from him. And I stood up and I was like, Your Honor, I said, my father's a pastor. My mother is an evangelist, and I actually grew up in the church, and I don't know how I got here. And in that situation, I tell you, I received, a miracle. And he sat there and he held the paper up and he was looking up in the top of the ceiling. And I know God was having a conversation with him. And so he was like, I got to give him the 15 years. God said, don't do it. He said, I got to give him the 7. These are all the deals they offered me that I turned down. He said, I got to give him at least the 18 months. He said, don't do it. Let me tell you, they ended up dismissing all charges on me. And I still sat in the seat because I could not believe that this was actually happening. And I sat in the seat and I was asking, I said, and I had even told myself, I said, when you get your time, don't cry. Because you didn't cry when you was in the street. Don't cry now. And I said, so I was asking and I said, let me try to see what I can do. And so he had to tell me, he had to put me out the courtroom. I wouldn't leave. He said, Mr. Sutton, I said you can go. Your case is dismissed. He said, but I hope I never see you like this again. And I said, Your Honor, you will never see me like this again. And I went out and got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, my doctorate degree. I started transitional housing for gang members. I started independent living program for young men aging out of foster care. I started a recording studio. I started an intervention program, anti-gang intervention program, an anti-bullying program. I started doing motivational speaking around the country. I started helping young people with Bloods in California, Crips in Little Rock, Arkansas, Vice Lords, Gangster Disciples in Chicago, Junior Black Mafia in Philadelphia, the Ninth Ward Boys in New Orleans, the 515 Boys in London, the Johnsons, the Burgers in the UK, the 515 Boys in London, the Americans in South Africa, the East Side Boys in Zimbabwe, and then Haiti, Jamaica, and going all around. And then I ended up actually receiving the National Dr. Martin Luther King Award, and also the Muhammad Ali Award. And I started working with youth with a message of hope, with a message of change, with a message of it ain't how you start, it's how you finish, with a message of letting them know, saying that God could turn a mess into a miracle. And I started doing everything and helping the ones. And one of the incidents that actually Brother Selwyn was talking about and that he happened to see is that I didn't know how I was going to make a difference. And then later, I was on a Sunday, I was prophesied over, and a man said that he saw me speaking in front of young people all over. And do you know that actually he said, but I saw death in a cloud of smoke over your head. He said, but he prophesied, and he said, but we're not going to allow that to happen. He had the church pray over me. That was on Sunday. On Tuesday morning, I was going to work, and I ended up seeing fire shooting out of a doorway. I ended up hearing people yell, and it was 10 people in the house, and I saved 6 of the 10. But one of the people, after carrying the grandmother out, after carrying the mother who fell head first from the 2nd floor, to the uncle that broke his ankle coming out, I ended up actually seeing a little girl, and she threw her little brother off of the 3rd floor. And I actually caught the baby, and he wasn't breathing. And I just learned how to do CPR on a baby, and you have to use your 2 fingers. And I started praying in between the intervals as I was praying. And as I was praying, and this little baby wasn't breathing, and then he started coughing. And then after that, I went back and I saw the little girl. The little girl jumped out of the window from the 3rd floor, and it was like she was just grabbing onto things, and she didn't have nothing to grab on. And I tried to catch her, and her and I fell in some glass, and she was actually just underneath the fire as it was just burning her. And so I ended up just grabbing her, pulling her out, and getting her into the ambulance. But the thing that was so significant about that entire situation, the mayor called my job and asked me to come to the office so that I could show the people what type of good people that were out there. But the mayor used to be, his name was Kurt Smoke. He used to be the state's attorney. He was the same person that was coming after my crew when I was in the street. So I couldn't believe that the same man that was trying to arrest everybody that was around me was the same man that asked me to come to City Hall to show them what kind of good people they have in Baltimore. And so after that, the little girl, I didn't hear from the girl, but years later, the girl actually found me on Facebook, and she said one message. She said, "Are you the man that saved my life?" And I just could not believe it. And I was like, "You have to tell me what happened to you." And I said, she said, "They put me in an ambulance." She said, "When you put me in that ambulance," she said, "you actually put me in there." And she said, "I was in John Hopkins burn unit for 18 months. She said, my face was burned, my hair was burned, and they had to amputate both of my hands." And she said, you know, and I was just shaking my head. She said, "But I'm calling you today," she said, "because I wanted to share with you." She said, "My little brother that you caught from the 3rd floor and he had stopped breathing and you gave him mouth to mouth." She said, "He just graduated from Mervo High School." And she said, "And I'm calling you today to tell you that I'm graduating from Towson State University with a degree in journalism." And I said, "But I thought you said you don't have any hands." She said, "I don't." She said, "I learned how to take the nubs and just write." And she said, "And I'm calling you today to thank," and I stopped her. I said, "Nah, boo, I can't let you thank me." And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I have to thank you." And she said, "Well, what would you be thanking me for?" And I said, "Because, sweetheart, that day you proved to me that one man with God could make a difference. I wasn't going to be a watcher any longer, and I was going to make a difference." And after all of those things that I went to, see, people, everybody want the Bentley. Nobody want the car payment. Nobody wants to go through what it takes for certain people to get to a certain place. Like, I don't want somebody else's testimony, but to keep it real, I didn't want my testimony. But I had to go through it. And so all of those things ended up happening. And so I ended up, they had me to come to her college when she graduated as a secret. And actually, it's actually on my page, the video of me coming from behind the curtain. And I was, when they got to her name, she came up in her wheelchair, and they had for me to actually be the one to call her name and give her her degree. And I thought that that was just so ironic. So I could say that the highlight for me was being able to speak at the White House, or to speak at Congress, or to speak at Parliament, or also I'm a consultant for the show Law and Order Special Victims Unit, all of these different things. But when I had the opportunity to speak at my high school, where my principal placed a bet I wouldn't make it to 21, and my counselor said I shouldn't attempt to go to college because I didn't enjoy writing, and I ended up actually being the keynote speaker, and they sat a man named Congressman Elijah Cummings next to me. And when we sat him next to me, he said, "I want to know," he looked at me, and then he looked at the program, and then he looked at me. He said, "You have to tell me what you have been doing." And I said, "Yes, because the last time we were sitting next to each other, this was not the situation, because he was my lawyer for assault and possession with a handgun the last time we were sitting next to each other. And I was the last case that he defended." And so for me, I ended up feeling like a superhero. I felt like it was nothing that I could not do. And so I started working with taking homeless people into my home, and taking, you know, and going around the country and working with people and trying to give people hope. And so, and that's actually the shorter version of the situation.
All I have to say is I lived a pretty wild life, a pretty decent life. I've come into the George Floyd situation. God knows, some jobs you know how to ask for, they're given to you. And I met Dr. Fred Sutton, me being a comedian, going and eat breakfast. And you know, and whenever I see Soul Brothers, I always got to pick on them. "What's up, brother man?" And then he acknowledged, "I'm going the same place that you're going." And what we're showing you here is one of the finest human beings that has ever blessed this planet. And what we're showing is we have a lot of young brothers that are articulate, that are smart, that are ahead of times, but because of where we are in life, they don't let us get ahead of times. This right here is a hero. He's a
Thank you.
complete hero. So hey man, I'm proud to be your friend, my brother. Every day
Ditto.
I,
I feel the
I talk
same
to
way.
I talk to Lars and I go like, yo, man, you know, Dr. Ted's a bad boy. Dr. Ted a bad boy. You know, and Lars want to say, I'm a bad boy. I was like, no, Dr. Ted a bad boy. I love you, my brother. I
I
love you
love you too,
for
man. I
what
love you too, brother.
you're doing for our people, their people, and anybody people. You're not,
Yeah,
yeah, we have to concentrate on black lives because that's what we are. But you concentrate on all lives, trying to make a
right.
difference, trying to make them better. Lars,
Mm-hmm.
say something, man. I got tears in my eyes, boy. Got tears in my eyes.
Well, listen, man, you have truly shared some inspirational words, Brother Sutton. You know, I also want to offer our guests the opportunity to ask you any questions they may have. But as Brother Selwyn is sharing, it is not often that we actually get, and I said this in the opening of the show, it is not often that we get to hear firsthand accounts from individuals that actually lived it, that actually did it, that were actually involved, and especially when it comes to how powerful God is, because there's so much conversation as well as consternation, as well as all the things going on, and people are talking about, you know, being a Christian and God this and God that, and it's like, where and when is your light going to shine? If you are a Christian, it certainly doesn't show.
Right.
So, and I say that not to point fingers at anybody and not to be a hypocrite, because Lord knows I have enough flaws to last me until the good Lord come and get me. So I'm certainly not pointing fingers at anybody. But what I am saying is that when we take time to realize that it's not about us, but given the proper attitude, it's because of us, that in and of itself obviously makes the world a better place. And when Brother Selwyn was telling me your story, and I want to say to our guests as well and our listeners, is that I went to YouTube and I watched that video where you were coming out on stage to pass this young lady her diploma. And you know, just as Brother Selwyn said, man, you know, it was very heartwarming to hear and to see you move forward. As Brother Selwyn knows, he and I talked about this, and I talked to you a little bit about this as well. Being an individual that work with young men that are involved in gangs and involved in violent activity and that kind of thing, being an individual that's been to over 30 funerals and having to go to the morgue with moms and help them to identify their sons with tags on their toes and stuff like that, man. I know from what you share, it's not easy and it's certainly not fun. And you know, man, to walk into a hospital room where and I was coaching one of the athletes had been shot, and the first thing he says when you walk in, before you can ask him what happened, he go, "Coach, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault." So to see young men such as yourself, Brother Sutton, is very special because people have a tendency, and I have been guilty of saying, you know, well, he won't even live to see his 18th birthday, or he's just a waste of everybody's energy because he's not going to be any good for society. But here you are. And as you and I both know, and as Brother Selwyn has alluded to, there are hundreds of thousands, millions of more young brothers out there just like you that didn't travel that road. And that's why I say to people all the time, I didn't travel that road. I was the good kid. And I came from a single parent home. You know, no drinking, no smoking, no drugs, none of that. I liked the girls, and I don't apologize for that, but I respected them. So a lot of times we get it twisted because we spend so much time labeling people. And we see too many times where crimes are being committed. However, they're never reported or they're wiped off of you get a clean slate and that kind of thing, and no one ever discusses that. So for you to be bold enough, quite honestly, to say, you know, hey, I did these things. I did some of these things, some things that I'm not proud of. You know, I made some decisions I'm not proud of. I committed some acts that I'm not proud of, etc. That speaks volumes. And man, I just want to say to you publicly is that in and of itself is a masterpiece.
That's bad.
It's a
That's
masterpiece.
a bad boy.
Yeah.
That's a bad boy.
So
That's a bad boy.
yeah, I just want to share with Valerie and with the Parsons. If you have any questions for Dr. Ted, please share with us. And I want to say to our guests as well, guys, put your questions there. You know where to put them. Put them up there. If you have any.
Who's Valerie? Who's Valerie?
Yes.
Who's Valerie?
So there's me right here.
Do I know you?
I was at that last Zoom meeting that the Parsons and I were at about the George Floyd bill, or that thing you're trying to pass, the Justice Act. I was at that Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Are you calling him Mr. Jones, DQ man?
Valerie is a member of Action Ridge, Selwyn.
Yeah.
What did you
I
think?
know. I'm picking.
Yeah,
I was like,
hard time.
are you calling him Mr. Jones, DQ man? I'm just picking at him, Miss Pete. I'm just picking at him.
Selwyn, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, please, to speak for our friend and brother Selwyn. Selwyn is an unpaid comedian, and every chance he gets, he likes to share his humor. So please do not be offended by what he's sharing.
Oh my God! He just said I was an unpaid comedian.
Yeah, unpaid comedian, brother.
I do have a couple of questions though.
Please.
How old were you in the courtroom when you couldn't believe he said you're free to go? How old were you at that point?
I was like 24 at the time.
Oh, okay.
So from between 14 to 24 was kind of like my time period of my reign of terror per se.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then my second question was, you said that story is on your page. Do you mean Facebook or do you mean another social media platform?
Well, actually, that story, some of it is on. I have my own website, Sutton House Vision, .com. That's SuttonHouseVision.com. And then also, I was talking about, I think he saw it on Facebook. I think Selwyn saw it on Facebook, my Facebook page. And and it may have been even my IG, Instagram, but it was really something, to to just be able to survive. I think that I didn't survive for me. I feel that I survived so that I could help others to see that there's life past mistakes.
Yeah. People
have to know that it's life beyond mistakes. In fact, one of my chapters in my book is called "Don't Be Born an Original and Die a Copy." Because a lot of our youth end up dying trying to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
gotta be you. You always have to be real to yourself. You can lie to everybody else, but when you look yourself in the mirror and you think, "Who am I? What am I? Do I like what I see? Do I like what I become?" That's where the true tale comes. And I look in the mirror every day and I'm thinking, "Daggone, I wish some of these freckles would leave me. Wow, maybe my cheekbones were higher." So, ma'am, when I'm with Dr. Ted, Ted is the show, and I just sit back and listen because I'm not impressed by very few people in this world. And Dr. Ted, I want to carry his bags to the airport when we hang out with each other because he's that special. You know what I'm saying? He is that special. I want to pull his bag.
Well, I can carry the bag, but I do appreciate the offer, though, brother. But it's something. You know what? What's so funny is people don't really kind of understand. I just feel an honor to just be doing what I'm doing. I tell people your passion will help define your purpose, but I'm actually doing what I would have done even if I didn't get a dime, even if I didn't get a check. I have to share my message to save somebody's life. Now, I tell people I don't live for money, but I do need some money to live. I get that part, but I'm not money driven. And that's the thing. I tell them, don't chase the paper, chase the dream. The paper will come. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's just how it is, because when you take away hope from people, you create the perfect criminal, a person with nothing to lose. And we have to give them something that they feel that they have something to lose. We have to show them something different. And so for me, I was given a second chance. So I'm looking at this like a superhero. I feel like I'm not going nowhere until my assignment is up. I'm not going anywhere. And I feel almost like a superhero because I look at, I've had my time extended because of all of those things and the dangerous life that I actually led, you know, as far as with that. In fact, one of the things that I tell my youth is your success starts where your comfort zone ends. So we may have to come out of our comfort zone to really make the big change, to make the real big difference. The only way you're going to do something that you've never done before, or have something you've never had before, you got to do something you've never done before. And so, and that's really where I am with it.
Yeah, I like that your success starts where your comfort zone ends. I think I wrote that down from the last meeting. And also, I'm not done until my assignment is finished. That's also very good.
Yes.
I like that one too. And what's the name of your book?
My book is called Temporarily Insane.
Oh.
And also, I'm doing a new edition of my book called From Pain to Power.
Okay. I have a question, Melvin and Dr. Sutton. I've been reading, I'm not quite finished, but I'm reading the book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, and it's very disturbing for me. It's very upsetting, and so my question is, when you think about all the ways in which Black people in this country have been so terribly abused and oppressed, how do you think what you're doing is going to change that in any way? Or how do you decide what you're going to do to make things better in this country? I guess that's my question.
Excellent question.
Huh?
Yeah.
Excellent question.
Well, one thing I will say, you know, to me, if I just change one, I'm actually making a difference because I'm hoping that they will make a difference. And so I don't just save a young person, one person. If I save him, I save his seed, and then I save his children, and then his children's children. Like something that I shared with somebody, I said, a young man asked me, why do you help me? Why do you even do this? And I said, well, maybe it's a little bit selfish. And I said, because the thing is that one day your son is going to see my son in a sub shop or at a restaurant or in the mall. And I say, and as my son, if he's walking with his head up, he going to say, oh, he think he all that. If my son uses good dialect, he's going to say, oh, he's talking white. You know, and if he actually has a belt on and talks with confidence and stands upright, you know, he's going to say, you know, where he thinks he's better than me. And so everything that I have instilled in my son to be a better person, I say your son will try to kill my son for being.
Yes.
Because what it is that my son represents everything that a man invested in him that they did not invest in your son. So if I can help save you, I can help you save your son. And then in turn, that helps save my son. So I said it's kind of like a little bit selfish. I'm a little bit selfish. I want my son to live.
Yeah.
And so in turn, I have to help, you know, the people and with the each one teach one. If one person, if you're able to just like saving that little girl and that young man, that young man that graduated from high school, saving their life, I realized that in the right place at the right time to say the right words or to commit the right act, you can change the trajectory of what was going to happen. Because if I had sat out there and just got my phone out and started recording like everybody else, it was about 60 people out there just watching me save people who did not help me. So I saved 6 people out of the 10. But if 60 people was out there maybe if 2 people helped me, could I have possibly saved all 10?
Mhm.
I don't know. But
Mhm.
what I'm going to do is play my part trying to make difference, because we have to also understand that U.S. history is mandatory in the school system, but U.S. history starts Black history. We have to let them know about Egypt and the King of Africa, and so a person can feel good about themselves. I actually was a little bit angry when I got out of high school and I realized that I didn't know about Hannibal, who went over the Alps and to try to take over Rome. And I did not know about certain things that I ended up learning later because I started reading myself. And so, you know, we have to do better with self-esteem, because if you actually are somebody that care about yourself, it's harder for you to hurt somebody if you care about yourself. So you have to have some kind of self-worth first. So that's one of the things. If I can educate some and I can do some things, you know, I'm going to keep on doing it.
Ted, may I add a little something to that? As Nan was asking that question, as you was talking about reading Caste and about the atrocities that have taken place, the way people of color are treated. And
Right.
the most important thing, in my estimation, is that if the truth gets told, and the truth have to be told by those that have written, perpetrated, and lived the lies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very difficult to address an issue when individuals, just like January the 6th, just like now, and it's not about partiality, but it's about truth, and it's about humanitarianism. So even if I, as a Black man, refuse to accept the fact that, yes, at one point, my ancestors were enslaved, you know, no matter how much I say that's not true, it'll always reign to be true. Now, I can take a history book and change that history book and say that that's not true, but that will not change the fact. So until my less melanated brothers and sisters understand that, as Nan brought up the book Caste, understand that you have no control over what you've been taught, just like we didn't. You have no control over the lies that you have been forced to believe, just like we didn't. However, you do have control over you. And that's the same thing we talk to our kids about as being Black men, Black boys, etc., is that you have no control over someone calling you the N-word, but what you do control is understanding that that is not who you are. What you do control is when you choose to educate yourself and to keep moving forward. What you do control is that you do not try to become, quote, white, Asian, etc., but then you be proud of who you are, and you treat every human being as a human being. So until we, all of us, accept the fact that, yeah, we were enslaved by some tribes in Africa, yes. When the Portuguese and some of the Europeans, etc., ventured into Africa and started to barter and actually bought slaves from enslaved Africans and brought them to the Americas, etc., then we have to tell the whole narrative. We have to tell the whole narrative, because until we discuss true humanitarianism, until we discuss the facts of what actually takes place and what actually happens. And that's why I alluded to January the 6th. No matter how much you holler, stop the steal, all this craziness, but you ignore that Hillary Rodham Clinton was cheated out of the presidency, whereby you shouldn't have even been there, Donald J. Trump. The woman had over 3 million more votes than you did. But no one seems to want to talk about that. And we try to talk about the Electoral College. Now, all of a sudden, the Electoral College is not to be trusted. So again, we have a world where people are comfortable with lying and know that they're lying, you know, and might I say this, Jan, and I promise you I'll get off the soapbox. It is transcended time. It has transcended time, even with the birth of the nation, where you have a president to hold a special viewing for people to come in and watch this guy dressed up in blackface, and my poor melanated sister is allegedly so frightened she jumps off and commits suicide. Now, and as Brother Sutton talked about getting people to realize and do something, when 60 people stood around and videoed instead of assisting him. Put this in your head. Adrian, Michigan, 1995. My wife and I moved there to take a job, being the first African-American administrator, even teacher, in a school, 1,800 students. Nobody looked like them. The first Saturday we were in town, there's a big Klan rally coming downtown Adrian. The Klan rally was because, if you can look her name up, Laura Haviland, who was an abolitionist who helped the slaves escape from go through Michigan and get to Canada. There was a bust of her outside the post office, and they were marching to have her bust removed. We encountered that. The third weekend we were there, we went to a flea market, and the KKK is sitting up as big as you please, like anybody else, with their paraphernalia. Right at 1995, 1996, we're looking for a condo, and in the clause it says, whoever purchased this condo, and they were brand new, you must agree not to sell to a minority. And my wife and I still have those papers to this day. So I'm talking 1995, 1996. That's why we fast forward to 2006. I mean, I'm sorry, January 6th. So as you were sharing with Brother Sutton and asking, as Brother Sutton was sharing with us, is that present day, until people confront the truth, and we refuse to have conversations. Everybody wants to have an argument instead of having a conversation. Last thing I want to say about that. I'm in the grocery store. Here's a mom. Here's my little less melanated sister. She runs up, she grabs me around the leg, and she says, fat man, fat man. And I'm laughing, and her poor mom is scared to death because I know, because of how our world goes, this poor mom is thinking, oh my God, this big black man is finna kill me and my daughter, you know? And I said, she said, oh, come here, Callie. I said, ma'am, don't worry. I said, how old is she, 2 or 3? She said, well, she's 3. I said, I am a fat man to her. So why am I angry? Why would I get angry because she's saying fat man? And, you know, of course, the mom was comfortable, but I understood that she was, you know, working with her child as far as how to be courteous and that type thing. So we all have to react properly, and we all have to learn. And I just want last thing, you know, about Brother Sutton's books. I haven't read them, but I'm going to. And I just want to, again, man, just talk, when you read things like Caste or the $40 million slave, when it talks about the athlete and that kind of thing, we all have a responsibility to one another. And that's the main thing that we do not want to accept. I get on the elevator and my less melanated sister clasps her purse. I'm the guy that, just like Brother Sutton, save those kids. I'm the guy, lady, that'll help you. I'm not the one that's going to accost you. But in her head, she's been fed so many lies, and all she see on TV committing crimes are people that look like me. So there's just a lot of things that we need to do as a society to really start making things go forward. And I keep saying, last thing I'm going to say, I'm looking at all these people jumping up here on January 6th, and we were talking about it's time to heal. You can't heal until you clean the wound. So if I being, and I'm only 5'10", 295 pounds, and if I just got, whoa! I've just got through pounding you in the face, and then when you decide you're going to pound me back in the face, now I want to compromise. Well, it's a little late for that. So that's what happens, that people do not want to accept, is the fact that we have to address the truth, and we have to address the truth honestly, and we have to have a conversation as opposed to an argument. So until we get to that point, to accept one very simple analogy, and I say it every chance I get, nobody asked any of us anything. We just realized at one point we were persons or people, however you want to put it. So anyway, this is Dr. Sutton's show, but I'm shutting up. But I had to address that, man.
Thank you very much, Melvin. Thank you, and Dr. Sutton too. Thanks. You're good.
Thank you. You know what? But I've realized that, you know what, the opportunity for change is actually, you know, here. I think that with so much that has been done to people of color, you know, and I don't even just say, you know, slavery, because I feel we were almost like POWs, people, prisoners of war, and we had so much taken away from us, and so it's bad when you had people just saying, well, just get a job and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But if you don't have boots, and that's easy for people to say that have so many opportunities, meaning that, you know what, just like if you've had a group that have wealth that has been handed down to the next family, and handed down to the next family member, and then that education along with that, and then you had, let's say, another group that they've had, when what they hand down is maybe debt, or they may die and somebody has to do a GoFundMe to just bury them. And so there's not a level of wealth that's being handed down, and the wealth also deals with the information. So how are some of these young men going to grow up to be a man if they don't see a healthy man as a blueprint around them? So they do the best they can. They may get a intoxicated uncle. They may get, you know, someone else who actually is you know, saying the drug dealer that gives them a little money to get a sandwich during the day. And so we have to understand that we have a lot of people that are so busy trying to tell these guys what not to do, meaning like pull your pants up, you know what I'm saying, and just get a job. But you don't take their hand and say, you know what, brother, I don't know if you can even fill out an application, but I'm gonna help you. We don't say that, you know what, I know you don't feel good about yourself, but I'm gonna actually buy a button-down shirt for you, so when you go on this job interview, you can bring a different look to the table. And so, you know, so you got a lot of people just telling you, pull your pants up, get a job, you need to do better, not knowing the circumstances around that. People are just focusing on survival. You got some people, they just want to know, what am I going to eat tonight? So, you know, so they're not really, you know what I'm saying, in a position to focus on cryptocurrency or the Dow Jones, you know, and understanding, you know, that's not what the Dow Jones is not on their mind. They don't care if it's 3,000 points up or 3,000 points down. At the end of the day, am I going to have something to eat tonight? And that's what we have to, a society is not really looked at by how they treat their strongest. It's about how we treat our weakest. It's about how we treat the ones that don't have. That's what really determines what type of society you really are. Now, I've been blessed that after all of that craziness that I was involved in, when I got sick and tired of being crazy Ted, that I actually had something to embrace me. I had a father that had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate degree. I had a mother that actually had a master's, you know, degree and a doctorate degree, you know what I'm saying, the whole nine. But my friends, a lot of my friends did not have that. And to be more specific, I had a grandfather, my father's father. He was somebody who did not even learn how to read and write until he was up in age. And he had his own lumber company in Louisiana. And so, you know, people have to understand, you don't know everybody's journey. And so it's hard for us to judge where they should be if you have no idea where they're at.
Freaking awesome.
Dr. Sutton, I have a question. This is Chris.
Hey, Chris.
You mentioned that you've done quite a bit of work with gangs around the country.
Yes.
And I'm interested in what kinds of strategies you would use to try to reach people in the gangs, because they are so closed. At least that's my impression, that they're a closed society and they don't let people leave. How do you approach working with them?
Well, are you talking about how they get in and get out, or because
Yes.
because I wanted to see you. I was wondering if you were saying, you know, how do I leave? How do I go in and how do I leave? You know, no, they let me leave. You know, so it's all good. But on that part, I will say this: in dealing with youth and young men and ladies around the country and around the world, the same thing that I saw in England and South Africa and Haiti, in Chicago and California, you know, New York, they've all told me one consistent thing. If they had means to provide for their family financially,
Right.
and if they could live in a safe environment where they didn't have to protect themselves, that they would walk away from that activity.
Yeah.
Just the two things. They want to be able to provide for my daughter, and I want to be able to live somewhere where I don't have to carry a gun.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in certain neighborhoods, I mean, I think about it's almost like a dream when I think about some young people who are in Boise, Idaho, and they on the farm and they're able to just kind of like be free, and they grow their own food. And I mean, and it's almost like a different world.
Mhm.
It
It
is.
is a different.
I mean, it's a different, it's meaning it's almost like they on a different planet. They don't have to, they may not have to be forced to join a gang. They may not be forced to have to go with some guys to hurt somebody. A lot of these guys don't want to do some of the stuff they do, but when you live in an all-blood neighborhood, and I even talked to some of the schools, and I'm like, how do you send some of the schools, how do you have them with blue uniforms in a blood neighborhood? You haven't even done your homework with the neighborhood, the community. You got kids walking through the community with blue shirts on in a blood neighborhood.
That means they're
And
different.
so when I say that, I think that we can make a difference if we could actually remove them from the environment for just a minute so that they can see that there is something different from these 4 blocks that they live in and know. Because when you are in the city, you might have pit bulls, you fighting pit bulls. Some people may be throwing firecrackers at a cat, you know, different things. They shooting BB guns, that may be a rat. And so you don't learn to appreciate life as much as you could when you have to milk the cows, when you have to feed the chickens, when you have to get the hay out for the horses. And so you learn to rub that horse and you learn to appreciate life. And I think that that's something that starts you to begin to appreciate human life.
Compassion.
He hit it on the nose. It shows that horse has feelings. It shows that cow has feelings. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to do things so that they can introduce them to a whole new way of life. Your window to the world shouldn't just be a television. And right now, that's their only window that anything is happening. And if you could actually control the media and the television, you could make them think a war was going on that wasn't even going on.
Yeah.
You can show old footage and make them think that something is happening that's not even happening, because if they don't journey outside of those 4 walls, they would be limited to what they can think as far as outside of those 4 walls in their mind.
Education has a limit. Imagination doesn't.
Right.
So,
Dr. Tatum, if I might just for a moment, I think when Chris was asking about, he's heard that once you're in, there is no getting out. And if you could address that just for a moment, because you did an excellent job doing what you were doing.
You know what? I do apologize because I did want to touch base on that. One is that for the fake gangs, you can get out. You know what I'm saying? You can work out something with the real official gangs.
Death.
It's supposed to be blood in and blood out. But what you can have, I've had to work out deals with what you call their big homie, the person that might be the leading person over that gang. And I can actually barter with them. And I let them know that I've actually had to work out a deal with a young man to get out. And I let him know, like, look, he only got his grandmother. He's the only child. I want to be able to work out something with you to get him out. And I tell him, I say, look, I work with a bail bondsman company, and I also work with a law firm. Y'all gonna need me at some point. So how can I work this out, and I will owe you one? Now I've had to actually do that, and what it is they can become what's called inactive status. So they can't sell drugs for nobody. They can't sell no drugs at all. They can't do anything for any other gang, but they won't make them put in work for their gang. And as long as they don't do anything with any other gang, showing any other activity, you have to be an official civilian. And if you get jumped or get into trouble, they don't have your back. You on your own. So you can become what's called inactive status, but that's a deal that has to be bartered. You cannot just get out, like that. You really have to be strong to be able to do that. And that's for the real official gangs. Now, for me, when I changed, I had put in enough work and I was strong enough to say, like, look, I'm walking away from this. You know what I'm saying? And I'm letting it go. And but to be honest with you, I have to keep it real, even as far as with me, as strong as I was, as respected as I was. My godfather was like a mafia man. When they said that I was doing a book, I had some people that definitely talked to me and was saying that, certain things you may have heard or certain things you may have known about in the past, you can never mention that.
Yeah.
And I let them know that I knew that. And they said, because it's even as strong as you are and respected, that it would, some people would try to come and see you. And so I already knew that. That's something after I had changed my life and wasn't even doing nothing crazy when they heard about, I think it was like a magazine that was being done about me and stuff. And they were just like, yo, that there's certain things you can, and they told me specifically, like, if you heard of some things and some things that you may know. And I'm like, well, actually those things, my memory ain't so good at. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to worry about that. I know the rules. You don't have to tell an OG the rules. I know the rules. So it's a possibility to get out, but I will not try to falsely let you know and make you feel that it would just be so easy. It's just that there are certain steps to do it to make it really happen.
Wow. Me coming from where I'm from, I could never imagine being in a situation like that. Couldn't cross the street. Couldn't go to a certain building because you weren't affiliated with a certain gang. I can't imagine that because we lived in the cornfield. Yeah, that's just deep. That is deep.
Well, Dr. Selwyn, let me say this to you, brother.
What'd you call me?
And Dr. Selwyn,
hallelujah.
let me say this to
hallelujah. Hallelujah.
And Brother Selwyn can back me up on this, man. When I mention all the times going to the morgue with moms and I help identify the kids with tags on their toes and you're having kids jumping up, even when kids get out, then they say, well, I'm not gonna have any protection. They've done some things while they're in the gangs, and then now the opposing gang see you again as prey because they want to get back, so to speak. Or even though you've gotten out, then they still know that there is still some kind of affiliation, even though you're not tied in with them, that if they do you harm, then they're still in their heads doing some get back. So there are a lot of things to this process, man. And I just tell my kids, Brother Ted, and I'm very honest with you, I say, remember the two S's, and you talked about that. There's a difference between being scared and stupid. Go down, you're scared. It's not about that. You know, so Brother Ted, I love what you're sharing, man, because a lot of people just don't get it, you know, and they can't get it because they haven't been around it, and they say, why don't he just walk away, or why did they get into that lifestyle and all that kind of thing, and that's why, you know, we have to educate ourselves,
Yeah.
and that's why we have to look at the laws and all of that stuff. When slavery ended, then all they did, that's why it's called Jim Crow, and then there's the Black Code and all that kind of stuff. They just turned slavery around and started making up all these phony laws to throw you back in jail again.
But you know,
So then now there are no dads, you know, that kind of thing. And so, but go ahead, Dr. Ted.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, you know, you're hitting on a very key note, but what I was going to say, people have to understand that I think that sometimes they get the false sense of, like, all right, like, to give you an example, I was doing something at the police department where I would bring in some gang members and I would let them tell their story of how they got into the gang and then also why they hated police. So I let them know their experiences with the law. There was not one that was positive.
Yeah.
They used to have officer friendly back in the day, but then that program dried up. And so people don't see officers ever having any positive interaction with them. And so they were saying, and they said, well, what was your experience? And he said, one young man said, you know, officer smacked my grandmother. We go to the next young man. He said, what was your experience? They raided my house, tore the whole house up. They had the wrong address and they didn't even apologize. They go to the next young man. And as they told these stories, in fact, one that was so touching was a young man was waiting for his sister to get off of the subway. The police pulled him up, roughed him up, told him, what you here for? He said, I'm waiting for my sister to get off the subway so I could walk her home. And then, so the guy took his cell phone, smashed it on the ground, then spit in his face and told him, get off my corner. And this is a young man that wasn't a gangbanger. He wasn't in no trouble. He was waiting for his sister to come off of, you know, the subway so he could walk her home. But how was he supposed to look at police after a situation like that? And so what I wanted to share with them, so most people think that, oh yeah, people just wanted the fast life. They wanted the fast money. So they actually became a gang member. Most gang members don't have no money. Most gang members don't even have their own home. Most of them are sleeping on somebody's couch or in somebody's basement. Let's get that straight there. The other part is a lot of them that have joined have been from a single parent mom, and they had to be the man of the house at 12 years old or 13 years old. And so that's a lot of fear. If you hear a window crash or somebody kick the door in, you 12 years old, but you know that it's just you and mama, and so, or you and grandma, so you have to be the one to be the head of the household. So a lot of these young men end up joining for protection. And they end up joining because it's a family. So that big homie is like a big brother or a father figure. So that girl that is the you know, the ruby red in the group, she might be like a big sister or like a mother figure. You know what I'm saying? And so they're looking for family out there. And so you have to understand, so I'm going to probably be around the people that I'm around the most. I'm going to connect with them as opposed to the people that I'm around the least, like your teacher, like your police officer, like all of them. I would rather be accepted by my peers, you know what I'm saying, than accepted by my teachers and the officer and everything else. And so people don't understand the lifestyle that a lot of them, they did not get in this to terrorize people. They did not get in this because they thought they was going to have a Bentley or thought they was going to be able to buy a Lexus or a Mercedes later. They got into this looking for family and protection. You know what I'm saying? For children that has had so many of their fathers lost to death and the police and the prison system. And that's the thing, until we address those issues, we're going to continue to have a cycle, you know what I'm saying, of children meeting their fathers in prison. I think one of the saddest stories that I heard is talking to a brother in Philly, and he met his father in prison, and then his father met his father in prison. And I said, now you had 3 generations in the exact same prison.
Destroyed.
And I said, now, I even told the young guy, I said, now you have a young son. He's 4. Where are you going to meet him at? Is he going to meet you? Meaning they met each other. What I'm saying is they met each other for the first time in prison.
Wow.
3 generations.
They met him. He
Oh,
met
3
his
generations.
father for the first time in prison.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
we have to, so to me, something has to be done so that we can stop this generational curse that's not really being addressed. And it's going to take wraparound services to deal with the issues that the mother's going through, the children are going through, and we're going to have to get them on the right path, because really people want to do better.
Mhm.
If they just had the opportunity and one person to believe in them, I think they could really make a difference.
Okay.
And
Listen,
I
great
believe so,
job,
brother.
Dr. Sutton. I'm sorry, Selwyn.
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
67% of Black families don't have a father and a mother together when they have babies. 57% don't have a father. So yeah, Dr. Ted, we've talked about this numerous times before. We've got to fix us. We got to fix Black lives before we can fix any other lives. And we need a lot of work in our race.
Okay, gentlemen,
Thanks to you.
we want to thank our guests, and we thank all of you for all of the hearts and thumbs going up. And you got Dr. Ted. Like I love to tell my guests, man, you guys do a fantastic job, because sometimes we get a barrage of questions from our audience, but when they are just sending up thumbs and heartbeats, that means the person is really bringing the pain. So we want to thank you so very
Thank
much.
you.
We always want to thank Nan and Chris for being here.
Ted the man.
And Brother Selwyn, you know you're always a pleasure being here, brother. But we would like to offer Dr. Ted an opportunity to give us some closing comments, and we will close the show for tonight.
Close them out,
Okay.
brother man.
All right, I'm going to close it a little bit different. First, I was born in sin, now I'm born again. No weapon formed against me can begin to win. There are no rules to break and no rules to bend. Just have faith like Daniel in the lion's den. And it doesn't even matter if you're deep in sin. Your life can be spared and will have to end. But you can't be swayed about getting paid and laid, and start handling your business and stop being afraid. Because you have to make a stand for what's righteous. Because this ain't like this. Because you know the words, you can't fight this. But you might like this. But even in spite this is not entertainment. Because God helped me write this. So maybe I might just spiritually fight this. Righteous riding, yes, I didn't cite this. I'm like a college professor just doing his sabbatical, and yes, I'm about to get radical. Praise for days and days on end. I won't back up, I won't break, and I won't bend. Protect when man, respect the land. Be your man, while you're taking your stand. And my name is Dr. Ted, freedom fighter Sutton, and I support that message. I'm out of here. Peace.
Wow.
Woo!
Fantastic. So,
Woo!
ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure with Dr. Ted, brother. That was magnificent. We appreciate everyone being here, and we just want to let our audience know. Hopefully, we can get to bring you live tomorrow night at 7 o'clock with Brother Selwyn, Brother Selwyn's sister Angela, and the first cousin to George Floyd, Paris. They will be speaking with California Representative Karen Bass, California Representative Karen Bass,
Qualified.
to with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act 2020, HR 7120. So come back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, guys, and join us. We will be streaming on our YouTube channel. Just look for Melvin Lars Live, and then also we will be streaming on Facebook, and you will get to hear firsthand the conversation between and I just say the Floyd family. However, we know that many of them have married, different things, they have different names, different last names, but nonetheless it's the family and the young woman that actually brought this law forward. That's historical. You don't get to witness that anywhere basically in the world with the actual individuals that are involved. All of us are aware of the police murders, and that's what they are. I'm sorry, you know, you just have to call them what they are. You know, and people talk about black on black crime and that kind of thing. And my question always is, show me a statistic anywhere in the world where people that murder other people are not murdering people in the neighborhoods where they live. So you have to be careful about the narratives people try to put on things and try to vilify people. It's the common knowledge, 83% of all of my less melanated brothers and sisters that are murdered by other less melanated brothers and sisters, not by black people, not by Asians, not by Latinos, etc. That is what we mean when we, on the Nobody Asked Me Guy show, when we talk about let's have a conversation. So again, guys, it's been great. We're happy that you're here. We were honored to have Dr. Ted. Hopefully we'll have Dr. Ted back again real soon. And we're asking Dr. Ted to bring some of his buddies next time so we can have a platform. And I do want to say on record to Nan and Chris and Valerie, is that we are working on a show. Dr. Ted Selwyn and I, we're working on a show to bring in Colin Kaepernick and what's the brother name? What's his name? Slick Rick?
Silky Slim.
Silky Slim. Now, and I want to go on record to share why we're doing that. Is because of this, why we have this show, because we don't have conversations. You never get to see a group of, quote, black men, unquote, going in the direction of trying to rectify the craziness as per life. It's always splintered. You'll see one person over here, one person over there, or something of that nature, but you never see unity. So people don't realize that you have a lot of people that are on the same page that are trying to get things straightened out, and they're not going around talking about white people this, white people that, black people. No, we're talking about humanity. That's our focus. That's our movement. That's the direction we are going. And when we talk about unity, we do not know how to spell unity because I'm changing it. It should be spelled Y-O-U-N-I-T-Y, not U-N-I-T-Y. It's Y-O-U-N-I-T-Y. So let me just say, Dr. Sutton, you bring the pain, brother. I'm blessed to know you, and I'm proud to know you. But this, ladies and gentlemen, has been the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. You can reach us at the Nobody Asked Me Guy show at gmail.com, or you can even phone us 440-935-0374. Dr. Sutton, I forgot to ask you, sir, please tell our guests how they might contact you.
Website is suttonhousevision.com. That's suttonhousevision.com. And I'm also on IG as Dr. Ted Sutton. And I'm on Facebook as Edward Sutton and Dr. Ted Sutton. So, and also I'm on Twitter as Dr. Ted Sutton. So that's definitely, you know, one of the ways, you know, that a person could definitely reach out to me. If you have a youth that may need encouraging or something, you know, please reach out to me. I'm right here.
Wow. Thank you so much. Brother Selwyn.
Audience, people, Nan, Ted, Mars, yeah. I am absolutely pleasured to be in the company of greatness. Now, what I always say at the end of the day, I got to do this. Woo! Turn the lights down low.
Thank you, guys. Hey, man, we have to go home on that note.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.